if I really wanted to say, yeah, I can't say what I really want to say, but it's their contract. They can do what they want with it.
And that was a little disappointing because communication has been poor over the last couple months.
I don't want to pay him. I really don't. If he's sitting in jail, I don't think I ought to be paying him.
So we're 1 week away from August, and the Cincinnati Bengals still haven't been able to solve their biggest problem. And now with the recent contract extensions for Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, this situation has gotten even worse. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to get the latest NFL news to your device. The season's about to start. I'm going to be bringing you all the breaking news in regards to trades, contract holdouts, and everything to do with college football. But if you don't want to miss that, make sure you're subscribed. Now, picture this. You spend $161 million on Sheamar Chase to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Then you drop $115 million on T. Higgins to keep him from walking. You already paid Joe Burrow like the franchise quarterback that he is, but then, and this is where it gets absolutely insane, you decide to pick a fight with your first round draft pick over contract language designed to protect you if he happens to go to prison. And if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear what the team's executive told their best defensive player, the guy who literally led the NFL in sacks last year. But I'm getting ahead of myself because there's a plot twist coming that nobody really saw coming, and it involves a loophole that could let Sheamar Stewart walk away from Cincinnati completely and sign with any other team in 2026. So let me paint you a picture of how we got here, because if you guys haven't been following along, the story gets really crazy. The Bengals currently have $31.3 million in cap space for 2025. Now, that might sound like a lot of money to us regular folks, but in NFL terms, it's basically couch cushion change when you look at what they're paying their offensive superstars. Joe Burrow's cap hit this year is $46 million. That's roughly 16.5% of their entire salary cap for one player, which, don't get me wrong, Joe Burrow's worth every penny as a franchise quarterback. But then they made Sheamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history with his 4-year, $161 million extension, giving him a $23.57 million cap hit. And remember T. Higgins, the guy who was supposedly going to be traded away for a first or a second round draft pick? T. Higgins could easily be a wide receiver one to other teams. It made so much sense for him to leave. But the Cincinnati Bengals decided to pay him as well, which just made this situation even worse. T. Higgins and Sheamar Chase have the same agent. The agent pretty much said that these two are a package deal, which resulted in T. Higgins signing a 4-year, $115 million deal that carries a $24.6 million cap hit for 2025. So if you're doing the advanced calculus at home, and trust me, this is important for what comes next, that's 3 offensive players eating up $93.6 million of cap space. That's literally 1/3 of their entire salary cap going to 3 dudes. And look, if the Cincinnati Bengals were defending Super Bowl champions last year, I'd understand. But the Cincinnati Bengals didn't even make it to the playoffs last year, and it was because they had the worst defense in the entire NFL. And here's where it gets absolutely wild, and this is going to make you understand why what happened with Sheamar Stewart is so ridiculous. Salary cap expert Andre Parada pointed out that the Bengals unnecessarily ate $8 million in 2025 cap space because they structured Sheamar Chase's deal poorly. They could have saved millions of dollars with better contract structuring, but apparently that level of financial planning is too advanced for the Bengals front office. Keep that $8 million number in your head, because when I tell you what they're fighting their rookie over, you're going to lose your mind. So let me introduce you to the man who's at the center of this chaos, Sheamar Stewart. This dude is an absolute freak of nature. We're talking 6'5", 267 pounds, who ran a 4.59 40-yard dash with a 40-inch vertical jump. At Texas A&M, his time to first pressure was 2.43 seconds, which was literally the best in all of college football. The Bengals made the right pick here. They desperately needed pass rush help, and they drafted him 17th overall in the 2025 NFL Draft. His rookie contract is worth $18.9 million over 4 years, with a $10.4 million signing bonus, all fully guaranteed. And this is where the story takes a turn that nobody expected. And I want you to pay close attention, because this is where the Bengals showed their true colors. Every single Bengals first round pick before Stewart, including Amarius Mims just last year, signed contracts with their standard default language about when guaranteed money could be voided. We're talking about complicated legal stuff that basically lists scenarios where a player could lose their guaranteed money, such as getting arrested, retiring, refusing to play, that sort of thing. But suddenly for Sheamar Stewart, and Sheamar Stewart only, the Bengals decided they wanted completely different language. They want new language that says if Stewart defaults in any year, he loses all of his remaining guaranteed money for the entire contract. Not just that year's money, but everything. And they want to add the phrase at any time during the contract to make it crystal clear. Now remember, the Bengals just wasted $8 million in cap space because they couldn't structure Ja'Marr Chase's contract properly. But this is the hill they want to die on? A hypothetical scenario involving a rookie potentially going to prison? Stewart's response was absolutely legendary.
Very bad. I mean, I've been doing this for most of my whole life, and then all of a sudden it's gone over something very simple to fix. It's kind of disappointing.
Have they given you any answers as to why they're choosing this year and you to set a new precedent?
If I really wanted to say, yeah, I can't say what I really want to say, but it's their contract. They could do what they want with it.
And that's when things got really interesting, because Sheamar Stewart has something most rookies don't have, and that's options. And those options could end up being the Cincinnati Bengals' worst nightmare. Alright, this is where the story goes from potential contract dispute to potential franchise-altering disaster. And I need you to understand just how much leverage Sheamar Stewart actually has here. First off, unlike rookies from previous generations, Stewart made some serious bank from NIL deals at Texas A&M. This kid isn't desperate for that signing bonus money like rookies used to be. He can literally afford to wait this out while the Cincinnati Bengals lose their minds. But here's the part that should have every Bengals fan panicking right now. And honestly, I'm not sure Mike Brown fully understands what he's messing with. If Stewart doesn't sign by Tuesday after week 10, that's around November 11th, he can't play this season at all. But here's the kicker that'll make you understand why this is so dangerous for Cincinnati. He can re-enter the 2026 NFL draft and be selected by literally any team except the Bengals. Let me say this again for the people in the back. If this standoff continues, Sheamar Stewart could walk away from Cincinnati completely and end up on any other NFL team next year. The Bengals would get absolutely nothing for their first round pick. Now you might be wondering, has this ever happened before in NFL history? And the answer is yes, it has. But it's been 48 years since we've seen something like this. The last time this occurred was Bo Jackson in 1986. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafted him first overall. He told them he wasn't signing. He played baseball for a year, then re-entered the draft and got picked by the Raiders. That worked out pretty well for him, right? Two-sport superstar, Hall of Fame career. And Stewart's got even more support than Bo had. Contract expert Joel Corey from CBS Sports put it perfectly. He's in the right because it doesn't matter what other teams are doing with respect to their guarantees. There isn't any uniform standard language for when guarantees void. Stewart's agent has been absolutely going to war for his client, and some of his quotes are just chef's kiss. He said, "Contracts are based on precedent, so when Sheamar has never asked for anything more or less protective than any of his teammates, it's a fairly simple fix." But wait, it gets even better. When Stewart refused to sign the rookie participation agreement because it didn't provide the same protections as other teams give their rookies, suddenly the Bengals wanted him to use the same language Amarius Mims used. So which is it, Cincinnati? You want to be like other teams or stick to your own precedent? Because you can't have it both ways when it's convenient for you. And the craziest part is an NFL insider revealed that this whole dispute comes down to what they're calling a double standard by the Bengals organization. They're demanding that Sheamar Stewart accepts different terms than literally every other Bengals rookie has ever signed. But before I tell you how Mike Brown made this situation 10 times worse with his public comments, let me tell you about what's happening with their best defensive player. Because if you thought the Sheamar Stewart situation was bad, the Trey Hendrickson situation just got so much worse since our last update. So while all this rookie drama is unfolding, the Bengals' best defensive player is basically putting his Cincinnati house up for sale. And when I tell you what team executives have said to him, you're gonna understand why this entire organization has fallen apart. Trey Hendrickson just put together one of the most dominant pass rushing seasons in NFL history. The man led the entire league with 17.5 sacks and had 83 total pressures, which tied him for the NFL lead with Myles Garrett. Over the last 2 seasons combined, Trey Hendrickson had 35 sacks. That's more than any other player in football. So what's this elite game-changing defensive player making? His current deal has him at $15.8 million in base salary with an $18.7 million cap hit. For comparison, and this is where it gets absolutely insulting, Myles Garrett's making $40 million per year. Danielle Hunter just got $35.6 million. Max Crosby's at $35.5 million. Even Josh Hines-Allen is making $28.25 million. And recently, while the Cincinnati Bengals decided to play this ridiculous game of chicken with their best defensive player, TJ Watt signed a 3-year, $123 million extension that includes $108 million fully guaranteed at signing, which means that TJ Watt reset the market at edge rusher once again at an average of $41 million per year. And this is nothing against TJ Watt, but you can easily make an argument based off of availability and productivity over the past 2 seasons alone that Trey Hendrickson deserves to reset the market over TJ Watt. And this is where you get an idea that the Bengals clearly have no idea what they're doing, because what brilliant offer did the Bengals present to the NFL's leading sack artist who was able to generate these sacks on a paltry defense last year? About $28 million per year for the most prolific edge rusher in all of football. And they want to keep it at a 1 or 2 year deal while Hendrickson wants 3+ years of security. The man's 30 years old. This is probably his last big contract, and he wants to tell his wife where they're gonna live and raise their family. That's not unreasonable, that's human. But then Katie Blackburn, the Bengals executive vice president and Mike Brown's daughter, decided to pour gasoline on this fire, and what she said will make your jaw drop. At the NFL owners meeting in March, when asked about Hendrickson's contract, she actually said, and I can't believe I have to repeat this, he should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. I'm sorry. What? And what you would say just made no sense at all whatsoever, saying some of it is on him to be happy at some point, and if he's not, that's what holds it up sometimes. It takes him to say yes to something. Imagine leading the NFL in sacks and having your team's executive tell you to just be happy with whatever they feel like paying you. That's like telling Patrick Mahomes he should be grateful for backup quarterback money. But to be fair, Patrick Mahomes is severely underpaid for his contract. Hendrickson heard those comments and went nuclear. He went on the Pat McAfee show and said this.
And that was a little disappointing because communication has been poor over the last couple months. You know, they have not communicated with my agent directly. Discussed with me in a meeting, which I'm very fortunate to have had with my agent, that we would get something done this year. You know, this year is going to get worked on. They also reiterated that at the combine. So, you know, they are more than welcome to call me. I've had my cell phone.
That's not all Hendrickson would say. He would say a very interesting tongue-in-cheek comment about helping the Bengals win a Super Bowl no matter what it takes.
You know, you don't want to become a distraction for the team. The goal is to win a Super Bowl for Cincinnati. You know, what that looks like, if it's something that we can agree on in terms, you know, that would be great. Ideally, my wife and I would love to stay in Cincinnati. If it's something that helps the Bengals win a Super Bowl, if they get picks or anything like that, I want to help win a Super Bowl for Cincinnati if I'm there or not.
And in May, Trey Hendrickson would come out and tell his side of the story.
I wouldn't be standing here with you if I got the deal in January. What I can say is I'm very disappointed with the communication that's been had, and what it foreshadows is not something that I'm excited about. They watch me every day. They see how hard I work. There's no other organization knows me better than this one. They watch me an individual, they see how I carry myself as a human being, and they know me. I was fortunate enough to have that trade request granted. It gave me the fortunate circumstance to see my value elsewhere. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that.
And honestly, good for him. The disrespect is absolutely staggering. But just when you thought that this circus couldn't get any more embarrassing, Bengals owner Mike Brown decided to hold a press conference and somehow made everything exponentially worse. At the team's annual media luncheon on July 21st, Brown shared his thoughts on both situations, and honestly, what came out of his mouth was so tone deaf, it's almost impressive. About Stewart's holdout, Brown called it foolishness and said it just ought to get done, but then revealed exactly what this entire dispute is actually about. And I promise you, your brain is going to break trying to understand the logic here. Brown explained that the issue is about guaranteed money.
The issue seems to be about guaranteed money if, in the event, he acted in a way that was contrary to league rules or our rules. For example, if he got into literally literally a criminal situation, something at that level. And that's what's holding up this contract. It's a form of foolishness. It just ought to get done.
And then Mike Brown went full out-of-touch billionaire mode.
But basically it turns on whether out years are guaranteed if he gets involved in conduct detrimental to football. Well, if we get a player who gets involved in something like that or does something that is just unacceptable, guess what? I don't want to pay him. I really don't. If he's sitting in jail, I don't think I ought to be paying him.
So let me get this straight, Mike. You're holding up your first-round pick, a guy you desperately need for pass rush, over a hypothetical scenario where he goes to prison. When was the last time a Bengals first-round pick went to prison? I'll wait. This is literally like buying volcano insurance in Cincinnati. It never happened. And Brown himself admitted this when he said, "We had never had to deal with it, and it's never happened." So you're wasting a year of Joe Burrow's prime over something that, in your own words, has never been a problem before? Duke Tobin, the Bengals director of player personnel, tried to defend this insanity by saying that Cincinnati was likely the last team to implement that language and arguing that it really doesn't make sense to say that Cincinnati doesn't get to evolve their contracts, yet the rest of the league gets to evolve their contracts. Stewart's agent responded with what might be the most savage quote in NFL contract history, saying Duke Tobin has had no involvement in this negotiation. It seems to be above his pay grade. And what about Trey Hendrickson? Well, Mike Brown said we want him here, but then basically confirmed that they're not willing to pay him what he's actually worth. This is the equivalent of saying we want to keep our Ferrari, but we just want to pay Toyota Camry prices for it. But here's the part that should terrify every Bengals fan watching this video. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This isn't just two isolated contract disputes. This is part of a pattern that's been destroying this franchise from the inside out. And the fans deserve better than this. The Athletic did a survey of Bengals fans in 2025, and the results should make Mike Brown physically sick. Only 3.1% said they were very confident in the team's direction. 3.1% is crazy, and I'm a Cowboy fan for crying out loud. That's down from 30.5% just a year ago. That's not a decline, that's a free fall off of a cliff. And it's not hard to understand why. The Bengals have had a long, painful history of these exact same contract disputes. Remember Carson Palmer? Dude literally retired rather than play for Mike Brown again. Jesse Bates, gone. DJ Reader, see you later. They consistently let players walk over money. Paul Denner Jr. from The Athletic nailed it perfectly. It's not just that Bengals fans are mad about what transpired over the last 12 months. The belief in the decision makers of the organization has fallen. The Washington Post described the situation as such. The perception of the Bengals is that it is more interested in saving money than in doing whatever it takes to win. And when you're nickel and diming your first round pick over prison clauses while you've got nearly $100 million tied in 3 offensive players, yeah, that perception seems pretty accurate. This is a team that had a championship window, and with Joe Burrow under contract, they still do have the opportunity to win. It's just they need to allocate the cap space properly. They've got Joe Burrow in his prime, they've got offensive weapons, but they're about to waste it all because Mike Brown is more concerned about hypothetical scenarios than actual football games. And while I was putting this video together, this story just took a massive turn that changes everything. Ian Rappaport just reported that long-term extension talks between the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson have completely broken down over guaranteed money. And get this, Hendrickson has now indicated that he left the state. Bro isn't even in Ohio right now, he's in Florida. And it gets even worse. Adam Schefter just dropped another bomb. NFL sack leader Trey Hendrickson told ESPN that he will not be reporting to training camp today with the rest of the Bengals, and Schefter revealed exactly what this dispute is really about. According to Shefty, this is an issue revolving around guaranteed money. The Bengals have been willing to offer only 1 year of it, while other top pass rushers like Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, and TJ Watt have gotten 3. Let that sink in for a second. The NFL's leading sack artist wants the same guaranteed money structure that other elite pass rushers got, and the Bengals are saying, nah, we'll give you 1 year instead of 3. Yeah, you heard that right. This is no longer about contract negotiations. This is about a complete breakdown in the relationship between the Bengals and their best defensive player. When a star player physically leaves the state during contract talks and tells ESPN he's not showing up to training camp, that's not posturing, that's a full nuclear option. For Sheamar Stewart, most experts think he'll eventually sign, but the damage is already done. Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated called it too trivial a matter to cause a holdup long term. But here's what's terrifying. Every single day that he misses a day, he's not developing. He's not learning the playbook. He's not building chemistry with his teammates, even if he signs right before week 1. The Bengals have already damaged this relationship before it even started. And if the Bengals keep being stubborn, Stewart could legitimately walk away and end up on any other team in 2026. For Trey Hendrickson, those predictions about him eventually signing just went out the window. When your star player leaves the state and posts a cryptic Instagram story of a highway, you're not talking about a guy who's close to signing. This looks like a guy who's done with the organization entirely. But even if both guys eventually sign, here's the real cost that Mike Brown doesn't seem to understand: trust. These players talk to each other. Agents talk to other agents. When free agency comes around next year, do you think elite players are going to be excited to sign with a team that played hardball with their first round pick over hypothetical prison clauses, that also told their best pass rusher to just be happy with whatever they offer, to the point where he literally left the state? The Bengals are building a reputation as a franchise that fights its own players over pennies while wasting dollars on poor contract structuring. That's not a good look when you're trying to convince free agents to choose Cincinnati over, literally anywhere else. And now with Hendrickson apparently done with the organization entirely, this could be heading towards a trade situation where the Bengals get pennies on the dollar for one of the best edge rushers in football. And this is what really frustrates me. I typically make predictions going into the offseason, and a lot of times I'm wrong, because a lot of times I speculate on what teams should do, but they don't do the things I suggest. It's not something that you need to be a genius to figure out on your own. The Bengals have Jamar Chase, and they have T. Higgins, who could easily be a wide receiver one for another team. They had one of the worst defenses in football last year. They should trade T. Higgins for draft capital, maybe depend on Andre Yosevach, or sign a wide receiver for cheap to be wide receiver 2 in free agency, and invest that draft capital into defense. But instead, they decided to sign T. Higgins. And now both of their top edge rushers might not even play for them next season. Even if Trey Hendrickson was to return, I want to know if you're a Bengals fan, are you confident that the Cincinnati Bengals can compete for a Super Bowl? I like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I don't know if you guys heard, but Joy Taylor finally got what she deserved. I made a completely separate video on that. I'm going to leave it in the end screen. I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.